All right, so welcome to Office Hours for Friday, May 22nd. I know it's going to be a little bit different just because it's not a Blackboard Collaborate recording, just because for some reason the connection is really hazy and weird today. But nonetheless, we'll still forge ahead. Today's focus is still Financial Friday, but it's going to be a little bit more geared towards narrative argument, which is what we started this week. So if you go to Blackboard, okay, if you click on this link, several prompts will pop up. Go ahead and save those in the narrative argument folder in your drive. If you haven't created it yet, please do so now. But nonetheless, take a look at these particular prompts. And as you'll notice, they are all geared around finance. Okay? They're geared around the way that you think about money, because as much as people want to promote financial literacy, you need financial awareness first. And in terms of financial awareness, you got to be aware of your own habits, your own attitudes, your own values in terms of finance before you can start seeking other people's advice on loans, on debt, anything to that regard. So you want to think inwardly first, and that's pretty much exactly how you want to go with your narrative argument. You want to think inwardly first. Okay? What about me do I want to convey outward? Right? So that's what you want to clue in on. So go ahead and pause the video. Take about 3-4 minutes, read over the prompts, and then go ahead and pick one that you feel you would like to answer. And I'll show you how to kind of go through the planning process for a narrative argument when you have the time to write and draft and all that good stuff. If it's obviously a job interview, you can do the same process, but it's just got to go a little bit more quickly, and obviously you got to think on the fly. But I will nonetheless tell you what to really focus on when it comes to a narrative argument, regardless of if it's written or spoken after the fact. So go ahead and take 3-4 minutes, pause the video, take a look at a prompt that you want to take a particular look at and respond to, and we will reconvene. Go ahead and pause. Cool. So, welcome back. Hopefully you've chosen a prompt that you feel speaks to you, and you can take going forward and you can actually turn into something where you actually reflect for an authentic audience. Like I said this week, your audience is not some invisible individual. You want to think of somebody tangible that would understand you and you would want to achieve your particular purpose with, right? So for me, I chose prompt 4. Okay, who's a financial role model? And that can be positive or negative, and how they have inspired you to think about your personal finance. So I came up with a few ideas, and I had two. I had two financial sets of role models. I had my maternal grandmother, and she's a positive role model for the reasons that, she ran 2 candy shops in Baltimore at ages 14 to 16. It was incredible. Her, father left for the war, and he just handed her the keys and just said, go at it. So she did, and not only did she go out, she expanded to that second one. Okay? One other thing in particular, she refused to let me invest without a thesis and support. And when you're planning these, you want to think about the quick answer, the short answer first. Okay, like maternal grandmother positive, parents negative. Then you want to do what I like to call the kind of the toddler method, where you just keep asking yourself why. Why is my maternal grandmother a positive financial influence? And I would list all of these whys. I would explain as many whys as I could, and the same thing down here. Okay? So, nevertheless, I have all these reasons. I won't, go over them all with you. All right? But that said, let's say I want to pick this one in particular as my favorite. She refused to let me invest without a thesis and support. And of course, this is when I was 16 and 17 years old. So obviously she needs to invest on my behalf. 18 and up, I can do whatever I want. But nonetheless, it's a lesson that really stuck with me even to this day in terms of how I, plot investments. Okay? So I don't really want to focus on the negative. I don't want to focus on how I did something well because somebody else did something poorly. It's just, for me right now, I'm just not feeling it. And that's the key with your narrative argument. You have to roll with what would make sense for you. Okay? Again, this is your writing. When it comes to these prompts, just like any other prompt, okay, whether it's Common App or Coalition, again, the prompts are just a jumping off point. That's all they are. All right? Both of those have the option to just tell us about yourself, right? If you start with prompt 4 and you go off in a completely different direction, but you're being authentic and you're writing about something that you care about genuinely, then don't worry about the prompt anymore. They provide you the freedom to say whatever you want about yourself. Again, colleges, what they're looking for is just to see where your values lie and how you maybe got there, okay? That's the key. So trying to appeal to a specific college, you are taking part in a very frustrating endeavor that I've noticed in my experience does not usually pan out well, right? Additionally, you don't really advance yourself as a human being, okay? Sure, you might get in to the particular school, but again, like if your values don't match the place, you're gonna hate it, and you just spent, upwards of $30,000-$40,000 for a year of I don't know if I like this. Like that's just what. Anyway, so nonetheless, all right. One thing you want to think about in terms of your mindset going into this, your life does not depend on this essay. Okay, I'll say this repeatedly throughout these last few months. Colleges are a business, okay, and you as a student are a consumer. Okay, all the marketing that they've done about about being at a hallowed place, intensifying your knowledge and wisdom and all that stuff. Yes. Can you get that out of a college? Sure, but only if you're an active participant. I know 2 people specifically who I went to high school with who went to Cornell, they went to Dartmouth, and they didn't really partake in the process. They went to class, they did enough, all right? They got their 3 point whatever GPA, and then they graduated, and they just kind of expected the world to be their oyster, and it's just like, well, they didn't do any networking. They didn't talk to their professors. They didn't actively ask questions in class. They just floated through. However, other friends of mine who went to Radford and Mason and Marymount, and, a lot of these schools that a lot of people consider backup schools, they went, they actively engaged with it, and they got a lot out of their college experience, including oftentimes a hefty salary. All right? But again, the key with this whole process is that you're going to a place that you feel can better you based on the values that you have and the values that they purport to have, right? So it's about finding that match. You are a consumer, they are a business. You technically hold a lot of the power because you either have the money or access to the money that they want, all right? So this adoration and pure submission to a college and worship of a college, it's not necessary. And if anybody comes at me, anybody in your party, in your camp, who wants to challenge me and talk to me about that, please invite them. I would love to chat with them, okay? Again, you can get a lot out of college. I'm not fighting the fact that you can get a lot out of college. I'm simply saying that you hold a lot more power in this equation than you think you do. And in this transaction, let me make that clear, transaction, okay? So, that said, each of these prompts, to get back to the present moment and not standing on my soapbox, to get back to the present moment, these prompts are all dealing with some sort of financial value. Okay? What do you hold near and dear to you in terms of money? Because money is a means to an end. It's not the end all be all. So you want to think about how you think about money with these particular prompts, and that's why I assign them. So, obviously both of these deal with money. 1, financial role model. 2, negative financial role model. I'm going to roll with the positive. And in particular, you want to pick one why, if you will, maybe 2 if you could combine them, that you feel conveys a value about yourself, right? This first one doesn't convey anything about me or my values, all right? So I put that in red. Savings rewards, my grandmother would give me $2 at the end of every month if I had saved a certain amount and kept a certain amount in my bank account. That could say something about me. I don't know, maybe, but I think it speaks a little bit more to my grandmother's generosity than it does to my value because it's not like I sit around looking at my balance at the end of every month. So it hasn't really stuck with me as a value per se in terms of like me rabidly checking my account. My grandmother paid for half my college tuition in undergrad, but none for grad. She said that's your financial choice. You bear the financial burden. Good luck. I'm not going to bail you out. Once again, it does, the event does say something about me, but probably not as much as like I want it to. So, I'm not feeling too great about that. Don't give money to your parents, they're a bad investment. That speaks a little bit more to kind of an uncomfortable relationship. So I may not want to delve into that. Investments are where you put up the money and other people put in the sweat, and you either believe in their sweat or you don't. And I like that lesson, and it is something that I keep in mind when I do go with investment. I do look at executives' record in terms of how hard they've worked, how diligently they've worked, what sort of things they've overcome. But it's still for this moment right now. Okay, I'm not super feeling it, but I am feeling this one. So I highlighted this one in green. This is the one I'm going to roll with, right? So I come down here. Shouldn't, spoiler alert. So all I did was I fleshed it out a little bit, and I'm going with a specific event, and I'm going with a specific moment, and I'm going to try and explore how that reveals something abstract about me, because that's what my audience is interested in. And like I said, my audience is not college admissions officers. I don't really care about them because they're too hard of an audience to pin down in terms of values, in terms of relation. But although unfortunately my grandmother has passed away, I'm actually thinking of her as my audience. I want her to feel a certain way. I want her to feel proud of the lessons that she's taught me. So that's how I'm going to set up this writing. And if a college is fortunate enough to receive this particular essay, well, great. Good on them. Okay? They'll get to see what I'm about, because that's what this application process is. It is about you. It is about your next step. These schools are lucky to receive your applications because you guys really are better students than you give you guys credits or afford yourselves, credit for. Okay? I hear you guys speak in class, and it's all self-denigration. It's tough. It's really kind of tough to hear some of your guys' conversations because you're so hard on yourselves. You guys have a lot to offer in terms of character, in terms of insights, in terms of wisdom, in terms of value. Letting a school tell you or, fixing your value to whether or not a school says yes or no, whether or not a school will allow you to pay them thousands of dollars, it seems silly. Okay, here's my thing. Here's the way I kind of look at the college experience and college application thing. Colleges are business. Now, you can succeed without going to college. Plenty of people have. But I don't hear too many colleges succeeding without students. So the student can succeed in life without the college, but not the other way around. So if you wanted to remind yourself of sort of who really has the power here, who really has the leverage, it is more onto your side. And again, even with a college degree, if you go, you still got to get some kind of value out of it, right? But again, I'll speak on that in the coming classes. So nonetheless, to our work alive, I'm going to then shift to what this event demonstrates about me. Okay, this is merely kind of a planning guideline. And I think with this event, to me, it demonstrates to me that I'm resilient, I'm insightful, I know how to look for qualities that are important, I am persistent, and I'm aware of a broader climate financially. So inherently, I've also laid out my values. I value, going after something I really care about. I value going for something, but with all the knowledge possible. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to display that with what I like to call kind of a bullet essay. And all I do is I write my whole narrative argument, but I did it in bullets. Okay? Now, if you read it, it tells the whole story. Okay? It's beginning to end. So if you want to pause it and read it, by all means, do so now. All right, welcome back. So, nonetheless, I still kind of felt the need to put an ending on this particular piece, and I wanted to say something that I thought would make, my grandmother proud of, the values that I have in terms of investing. Now, my grandmother's a tough cookie. She's not for that sap. She's not for that, and I realized that I had the power within me to invest all along. Right? That corny crap. My grandmother would hate that, right? So I'm going to write something that I think she would be proud of, that she would care about, right? So that's what I went ahead and I addressed the potential audience question, which is okay, so what do we learn about you? And I wrote this particular end piece. Now, again, I'm not in love with this ending, but I like it for the time being. And in this planning process, sometimes that's all you need. Get something you like so that you can mold it, shape it, and work it into something that you love. Okay? Now, in terms of timeline of when you should be writing essays and this, that, and the other, look, you can write on essays whenever you like. I personally recommend take 3 hours a week. You can do 3 hours in a day and nothing the other 6. You could do 1 hour a day for 3 days. You could do half an hour a day for 6 days. It's up to you, okay? But I would recommend 3 hours a week just working on it, whether it's planning or whether it's actually writing, okay? It provides you enough time to stop, enjoy life outside of this application process, because it can take up a lot of your time, and really expand, keep your mind fresh, all right? So, additionally, I also recommend forming a writing group, anywhere between 3 and 5 people total. That should be it, okay? That way, if one person's not available, the world's not over. You can still meet as a 4 or a triad, right? Or even a pair. But nonetheless, you want to have that support, okay? Now, speaking of support, to be honest with you, I'm only going to be able to read, with you guys, your admissions essays one time and one time only ever. So you have to pick and choose wisely if you want me to have any input. Mostly because I don't really recommend going to a lot of people and shopping it around, because honestly, you kind of spread yourself a little bit thin. What I would personally recommend is think about keeping that network small, 2, maybe 3 different people, tops, in terms of revision, and then you roll from there. And at that point, you have to trust it. You have to trust the writing piece. Okay? You don't sit there and worry and panic, oh, will this get me in? I've said it so many times. Okay? If a school does not want to be a part of your journey, tell them to kick rocks. All right? A lot of people are going to be, and a lot of schools are willing to be part of your journey. Give them a look. And if you just cannot live without having gone to Stanford, then keep in mind, transferring is a lot easier to gain admission than it is right out of high school. Okay? Because you've already demonstrated yourself at the college level. And more importantly, you've demonstrated to them, anyway, more importantly to them, you've demonstrated that you know how to pay for college. You've found funding. Okay? So that's what they really like. So, nonetheless, I'm going to go ahead and stop right now. But go ahead, take a look, try your own with one of these financial narrative prompts, and perhaps, if nothing else, maybe it engenders a conversation with somebody you know, love, and care about as a financial role model. Okay? And speaking of which, your financial role model should be somebody you can actually talk to, you can actually speak to, or have spoken to, somebody you have access to. Okay? Warren Buffett, Jeff Bezos, unless you have them on your cell phone, I wouldn't look at them as financial role models. I would look at other people who have that similar sort of value set, people that you genuinely look up to. But that's okay. But nonetheless, I'm going to stop there. If you have questions, rdnelson@fcps.edu. I look forward to talking to you soon. Take care. Have a good one.